more than one term, quite frankly, because older people say that older Americans will not stand for that. I don't think Utahns are that way. I think Utahns are patriots. But no more than 3 terms at the very most in the Senate, and no more than 6 terms in the House, to me, is what the system should change to. And we have to do that by constitutional amendment, but I will champion that every year. I'll propose that, and if I can win that, and I'm willing to live by that same situation. I don't want to be a career politician. I want to go in, get my job done, and get out. Well, I still have, a life to live beyond that. I've had a good business career. I've had a great life to this point. If I win this election, I'm going to go back and serve. If I don't, life's going to continue to be good for us. So,
are you willing to support legislation that would make it the law of the land that congressmen and senators would live by the same health plans that we have to live by?
The 28th Amendment is what
28th Amendment, yeah, 8 points. It's going around right now, a whole bunch of things in it, but that Absolutely. I love, every one of them.
Absolutely, yeah, no, and the bigger problem, in my opinion, well, you're right, they have a special sweetheart deal. It used to be that working in the federal government was not as high compensation. It was more secure, so you took a less compensation and you went to work for the government. Over the last 20 years, government pay has crept up, like slowly on a natural process, while wages in the private sector have gone down and had some wage pressure on them, till the point that today the same job with the same experience is 45% higher in overall compensation at the federal level. We are running ridiculous deficits right now. We need dramatic reform at the federal level, the federal employee level. We've got to start to freeze workers somehow. We've got to freeze the rise in compensation, and ultimately we're going to have to make some cuts, which are going to be harder to do against the most powerful union in the country. But we are bankrupting this nation because of out-of-control spending. If you look at Argentina, the Weimar Republic, a lot of other examples out there where government growth and independence and an explosion of unions and everything else ultimately cratered those economies. We have got to turn this around and free up the economy much more and get government out of the way. And part of that is to have a re-rationalization, broadly speaking. Congress should not have anything different than any federal worker. But even that is high compensation relative to the private sector. So there's a lot of reforms that have to go on there. So yes on the 28th Amendment, yes on the need to reform overall the government sector, which is a lot more, adding more to our deficits than just Congress's sweetheart deals. So, yes.
What are your thoughts on immigration and E-Verify for our state?
Well, E-Verify is a great program. It's a software program that is easily downloaded, and employers can use it to verify whether the worker that they have is actually who they say they are, or it's a 14-year-old girl from Palo Alto, California, that happens to be working in their factory. I mean, they verify that aspect. But the 3 things that I have for immigration that I believe we have to do. Number 1 is we have to control our borders. We do not control our borders today. We have we basically say if you want to come into this country legally, it's 5 years, $5,000, and maybe we'll let you come in. But if you want to come in illegally, come on in all day. The door's open. There's no real repercussions for you. We'll selectively enforce once in a while a deportation here or something like that, but we really don't control our borders. I travel to Latin America, Southeast Asia on business from time to time, and they know where I'm at, how long I'm going to be there, which hotel I'm staying at. They care about their borders. We don't care about our borders. And if we're not willing to bite the bullet and really enforce and secure and change that dynamic, the little fixes here and there that we do inside our country are not going to hold water at the end of the day. Then we have to take away the incentive system. We have huge incentives that reward people for breaking the law in this country and coming here illegally, and we've got to take those away. The anchor baby loophole, which is that you can come here, have a baby, and there's automatic citizenship. Other countries don't do that. Why do we do that? Experts tell me we can change it by statute. We don't have to change it by a constitutional amendment. So once you deal with a lot of the incentives, then we've also got to enforce our existing laws. We enforce our existing laws at the state level, at the federal level, then I think you're going to see natural attrition of people going out of this country. As long as I'm not anti-immigrant, I think we have to have a reasonable and a more flexible, easier system so people understand how they can come into this country. It's not 5 years, maybe it's a year at some point. There's a background check. If an employer wants to bond for that employee or something like that, but right now we have high unemployment. I think people need to get the jobs that are here as well. I also believe that if you have a coherent system like that with secure borders, and that means not only border patrol, but finishing the fence, satellite imaging, biometric cards, so for people that come in, and we're really serious about that issue, then I think you can actually the federal government has some responsibility. I think you can over some period of time, a year, 18 months, say, okay, if you go out of this country now and get in the back of the line, then you're not going to be punished. And I think that's the fairest way to do it. I believe we can move 12 to 14 or however many millions of people back out of this country and put them into a different system. So
E-Verify is only partially used throughout the state, and I was wondering, in some states it's the whole state in all hiring. I'd like to see that in our state.
the SB 251 was the bill that was passed at the state legislature. I think that they're going to have a special session. Is that right?
I think so.
They're having a special session to fix some of that and make sure it's broadly enforceable and has some flexibilities, not to just crater the economy. Governor Herbert's on the front lines of that. I think that's an example of, because the federal government has abdicated its constitutional role at protecting the borders. States have to step up, and because the states have more to gain or lose. Just the social consequences of not fixing this problem are dramatic. In Los Angeles, 42 emergency rooms have been closed. Our healthcare system is taking on a huge burden of people who are using the system not paying for it. We're putting hospitals out of business. In Georgia, there was a free clinic that had served poor, poverty-stricken areas for decades. Doctors gave money to it. People contributed from the community. It was overrun by illegal immigrants and ultimately had to shut down, so it could no longer provide the free charity care that it was giving. I was over education for a period of time here in the state, and we saw an influx of illegal immigrants coming into the schools. And you could see the test scores go just like this. The teachers weren't equipped to speak 2 languages. They were taxed with larger classes without the ability to address all the needs now of these students. It was a real burden that you could see the crescendo and the turn of our test scores at the elementary school level in particular. So there are real social consequences, and not to mention that our kids don't work as much as they used to. Our growing up, and we took the menial jobs, we did all those things, and we learned through that process that we wanted to go to college. Get an education, and today our kids aren't taking those jobs. Sometimes they can't get a job at a McDonald's if they don't speak 2 languages.
If they have that E-Verify and they can't get a job, they won't come.
Well, that's part of the incentive system. If we're not allowing them to be employed, if we're not allowing them to have access to those services, then there's no reason to come, and they'll want to come legally. Again, I'm not anti-immigrant. I think we should be a nation of immigrants, and we benefit at some level from that. And I work with the Sheep Herders Association. They have really high technical specialties for sheep herding that they can't find anywhere in the United States, and they have to get from generally Peru. This is really a unique niche. So we've got, we're not a closed borders, but controlling our borders is critical. So, yes.
Will you explain what your company Interlink does, and why does it have a DC office? What's the relationship with the Department of Energy and the federal government?
Absolutely. So I worked in the Reagan administration at an agency called Exim Bank. And Exim Bank's job at that time was to help U.S. exporters get financing to sell goods and services overseas. So $1 million of exports translates into 22 jobs in this country. I'm a big free trade person. I'm not for protectionism. I'm not for throwing up barriers. That when government doesn't intervene in markets, markets are more efficient. That's domestic and international. So I've been involved in international business and helping companies in the U.S. to export for a long time. This company right here in Provo called Razor Technologies, we're selling $200 million worth of equipment to build a geothermal plant to Indonesia. So I work with them. I'm the chairman of Interlink Capital Strategies, and we help companies who have a strategy to develop their businesses. So in the case of Razor, we're building a plant in Beaver, Utah, about $120 million plant that creates a lot of jobs, a lot of economic activity. We're building another one in New Mexico, so I'm helping them in consulting and business development, getting access to capital, financing. In some cases, they get SBA type loans. If you're familiar with what an SBA loan is, the government tries to help entrepreneurs get started, and so they have SBA loans. Likewise, in energy, there are similar SBA type of loans, but they're in the hundreds of millions of dollars of size, and so we're helping them to be able to access that to build their energy plants. Now, right now we have, so in terms of the project in Indonesia, there will be $200 million of exports for about a $500 million big 300 or 200 megawatt power plant, which is a big power plant. Probably about $100 million of that will come from Utah. So if you translate that by 22 jobs times 100, that's how many jobs will be created and sustained